Hello and welcome to the 2025 UAGC Culture of Care Summit Day 2. I'm Dr. Dan Augusto here with Dr. Marcella Anderson. We're both faculty members within the Department of Behavioral Sciences here at UAGC. We're pleased to welcome you to Building a Culture of Care in Military Education with UAGC Military Alliance managers Lisa Binger and Travis Burchett. If you have any questions or comments, please let us know in the chat and we will circle back to them as we can. I will now turn it over to Lisa.
Oh, thank you and hello. So my name is Lisa Binger and I'm a Military Alliance Manager for University of Arizona Global Campus. And I'm really excited to be presenting today because what Travis and I do, in addition to our day jobs, is we are part of volunteer organizations that support policy, advocacy, and best practices within the military affiliated student community. And so I'm excited to be here today and present on some of the things that we're doing out in these separate roles and some of the initiatives we're focusing on and the changes and the challenges that we're trying to address and the changes we're trying to inspire. Travis, you want to go on to the next slide? So this is us. But we're here in person. So I'll let Travis introduce himself.
So again, my name is Travis Burchett. I'm originally from Kentucky, now living in Tennessee, currently presenting from Dover Air Force Base, Delaware, where I'm out engaging with our students here on the ground. I spent 22 years in the United States Army as a Medical Service Corps officer, retired in 2014, taught JROTC for a little bit, and then now I'm over in this role for the last 2 years this month. And it gives me a chance to keep on teach, coach, mentor with these students, help them reach their educational and personal goals.
Perfect. And Travis serves as the president of the Mid-South Advisory Council on Military Education, and I serve as the president for the National Association of Institutions for Military Education Services. All right, Travis, next slide. There we go. So what we're going to talk to you about today is we're going to cover a little bit about understanding the military education landscape, what our students are facing out here in the field, the specific challenges that they might face that are different from other challenges that we see with non-traditional students who are adult learners. But the military, given their roles and responsibilities and their jobs, it creates special challenges that really need to be highlighted in order for us to best address and support these students. So we're going to introduce you to the American Council on Military Education, otherwise known as ACME. And we're going to introduce you to the National Association of Institutions for Military Education Services, also known as NAIMES. And those are the organizations that Travis and I serve on the executive board for to help support military students in our own university as well as other institutions. We're going to talk about how ACME and NAIMES both work in building a culture of care to assist internally within our organizations for our own culture of care and sharing that culture of care through our organizations to other institutions as best practices when serving the specific students and their needs. Next slide.
So why a culture of care for military affiliated students? And to be clear, a military affiliated student is a active duty National Guard Reserve veteran, a civil servant from the Department of Defense, or a military spouse or the child. So providing equitable access to education, what does that mean? Really, flexibility is the key. And you're going to hear this again and again throughout the presentation, is flexibility, understanding, and that additional support, because it's not the same as a traditional student. We'll drive that point home several times throughout these slides. Promoting retention success. So because these students require some additional supports, may require additional support, especially when they're new to the system. A lot of the junior enlisted members that come straight in out of high school into the service, this may be their first access to higher education. They don't know the language. They don't know how to access resources. They may be a first generation college student. So they didn't have that those supports coming up, as they're growing up. So within the Air Force here, for instance, the Air Force pushes education really hard. So there's a huge pressure for these airmen to start school. They may not really know what questions to ask. So again, that's part of our role as military alliance managers out here in the field, as part of the military enrollment team. And really, everyone in the university has a role in supporting these folks as they make that transition into higher education. The enhancing the overall well-being of military students. Again, the lifestyle is not anything like you've ever experienced if you've not lived the life. So understanding that, applying a little bit more empathy and understanding to the situations these members may find themselves in as they're trying to pursue their education, that all supports our university's culture of care. Meeting folks where they're at and trying to help them achieve their goals. So let's talk about the landscape. Deployments and base relocations. I'll use the term PCS, permanent change of station, when I'm talking about base relocations, because that's just how my personal lexicon works. The deployments, it's an ongoing reality. We'll talk more about that in the next slide. But within the relocation time frames, usually May to August, we'll see a drop in student enrollments because guys are starting to prepare for PCS season. Typically, the military will try to move folks in that May to August timeframe because they understand that they've got kids in school. It's just a little bit easier for everybody to manage that time frame if we do it in that time, those 3 months time frame. But that isn't to say that those deployment or relocations don't happen off cycle. You'll see guys moving any month of the year, but we typically try to keep it in that 3-month period. Next, learning how to access resources. A lot of members don't understand how to even begin to access starting school, which is a big part of our role out here in the field. Is we'll meet with a student at an education fair. How do I get started? Go see your education center. Let's get you, starting your tuition assistance. It's branch specific between the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Space Force on how they do things, how to access their veterans benefits, what scholarships and grants are available. It's surprising how many folks we talk to that have never heard of a FAFSA. So exposing them to those sort of things to help them start building their little toolkit of resources. The statutory cap on tuition assistance, that is a big deal. And Lisa will talk more about that in the NAIMES portion. But each year, military members are entitled to $4,500 per fiscal year starting in October of tuition assistance benefits. It's capped at $250 a credit hour. So again, when we look at persistence, we'll see students drop off late March, April, early May is when it really hits. If students have been continually enrolled since October, they've run out of benefits. So that does create an issue for us as far as keeping guys enrolled. And like I said earlier, student persistence may not look the same as traditional students for all the reasons that we have discussed and will discuss that impact upon their time. Deployments. Right now, among tons of other things, we have the southern border. No one has really said much about how long those deployments will last. So it's a lot of uncertainty for students who are assigned to units that are being deployed to the southern border or think they will be. There's some hesitation to start school. They don't know where they're going to be on the southern border. Will I have internet access? Will I have, the operational time to do school? Eastern Europe and South Korea, those rotations are usually 9 months. And what happens is the commanders will tend to maximize that time for field training exercises, partner nation exercises. So what we typically tell students who are about to deploy is don't try to start school right before deployment or during a deployment, unless you're already over there and you know what the tempo is going to look like, what the infrastructure is going to look like, to where you can confidently say, I have time and resources to do this, to do school. The field exercises, Lisa and I are both located just outside Fort Campbell, Kentucky, the home of the 101st Airborne Division Air Assault. 3 times a year, the 101st goes to the field, the whole division at a time, for an operation called Operation Lethal Eagle. It's a 45-day exercise, and they do this 3 times a year. That's in addition to every other field exercise that the units do individually. So typically these are scheduled well in advance, and the soldiers have predictability, but that isn't always the case. But while they're in the field, they'll have no access to their phones or their laptops or internet access. So again, you're seeing those constant stops and starts with military students. And then other emerging requirements. The one thing that I will talk about on that is these rapid deployment units like the 101st or the 82nd Airborne Division will have a unit that is consistently at the ready to deploy, and the standard is 18 hours from notification to wheels up in the air. It becomes a very stressful time, and for me, I would be hard pressed to advise a student to start school if they're on the deployment ready brigade cycle, just because they could be called up at any time, even for a test of that system. They'll activate them and then fly them to Fort Bragg for 2 weeks to do an exercise and come home, but there's no predictability. So that's the key piece of this slide, is predictability in their lives. They just don't necessarily have it. All right, let's talk about funding for a minute. Major funding source for a lot of our students is military tuition assistance. And as we talked about, that is a $4,500 a year per cap. So that equates to about 6 classes per year at UAGC at the undergraduate level. So again, when you look at progression and persistence, it's considerably slower than a traditional student. You'll have students who take multiple years to get their degree. Talked to a student yesterday. He was on his 10th year and was about to graduate. So it just kind of, you see these guys come back, start, stop, and it's a tough time to get their degree done. Next is your veterans benefits, your Montgomery GI Bill or the post 9/11 GI Bill. The post 9/11 has become kind of the operating standard, I think, for most folks using the GI Bill. It provides for 36 months of education. Now that 36 months, important to note, is that it's 36 complete months. So if you start a class on August the 18th and you finish on December the 7th, for instance, you're only getting charged for the actual number of days you're in school. So I stretched my post 9/11 GI Bill through 2 years of a master's program and 2.5 years of a doctorate, just because of the time I was actually in school. So understanding and being able to counsel with students about their funding opportunities like this and what options they have is pretty important out here in the field. And as an instructor or as anyone that deals with military affiliated students, being able to have that conversation, have you considered this funding? Because ideally we have continuously enrolled students that aren't dropping out due to funding. External funding, it's surprising how many students don't know anything about a FAFSA. They don't know they may be eligible for a Pell Grant or other scholarships. We sit down and actively talk to students about, take the time, go out and write yourself one good scholarship essay and keep searching for any and all scholarships that you think you might be eligible for and go from there. We've talked a lot about the persistence piece of it, the base relocations, the deployments, etc. Another one of the ones we talk about, we see a lot of student persistence is within the non-degree seeking students. Those students are typically taking their general education requirements with us to like the community college, the Air Force, for instance. They'll take their general education credits with us, apply that to their CCAF degree. They may come back to us for their bachelor's degree. They may not. They may take 1 class with us. They may take 6 classes with us. So it's kind of hard to say when you see an NDS student in Seaview, what type, what we're really going to see out of them as far as retention and persistence. As we talked about, the frequent pauses due to funding, exercise, or deployments, those are all things that kind of affect their persistence. Lastly, on the ACMEs, the Advisory Council on Military Education, their big push is that we want to promote, support, and deliver meaningful education within all branches of the armed services by encouraging educational institutions to be innovative and flexible in their educational needs. We want to address military education issues within the individual regions, and we'll show the regions in the next slide. We want to focus on evaluating and restructuring policies related to acceptance and transfer of credits for veterans, military students, and their adult family members. Enhance educational aspirations of the military population. Make educational programs accessible at cost, location, and scheduling. We also want to facilitate communication between the ACME member organizations, the Department of Defense, and the Educational Support Network. We essentially work as a bridge between the military members, veterans, and their educational institutions. The success stories. In September, Mid-South ACME held its annual symposium, and we invited NVETs from Indiana veterans, to come down and talk to us about what they're doing with their legislative pushes, how they're helping veterans find jobs, how they're matching skills to careers to help those veterans find the right spot. And the idea is to help share best practices between different states, so we kind of all move to the same sheet of music. Next thing is we working hard to support prior learning credit. So Dallas Kratzer, one of our members of Mid-South ACME, is huge in this space, and the idea is to look at military prior experiences and credit and find a way to transfer that over to actual credit that's recognized by the American Council on Education. That becomes huge. Each individual in the military has a thing called the Joint Service Transcript, and it shows every single class they've ever taken within the military and what the recognized credit recommendation by ACE is, which makes it a lot easier for enrollment and the registrars to say, this is what we're actually going to grant credit for at our institution.
Here, you gotta make sure it's capitalized when you answer it.
Right. The states with an active ACME presence right now is the Mid-South ACME in Kentucky and Tennessee, and we're expanding our little tentacles up into Indiana, Virginia, Florida, Missouri, and Colorado. Additionally, New York, Texas, and Washington are working to get their ACMEs back up and running. These are volunteer organizations, and as a result, there's a certain level of churn each year with the volunteers, what the priorities are for the individuals. And it is a constant work of love and passion to keep these organizations running, to support those military members and do the right thing for our service members who have given so much to us as a nation. Lastly, on the ACMEs is one of the things we do within the Mid-South ACME is provide scholarships. Each ACME can provide scholarships at their own discretion. What we do in Mid-South is we provide a scholarship at the undergraduate level, one at the graduate level, and one for military spouses at any degree level. Every officer within the United States military has to have a bachelor's degree before they can be commissioned to come on active duty. So that undergraduate scholarship is specifically targeted towards the junior enlisted, senior enlisted population. The graduate degrees can be any rank. And then the spouses, again, at any rank as well. Our annual symposiums that we do, again, these are regional. The intent really is to better connect schools on best practices and how to support military students and connect them with resources. Last year, Mid-South ACME had Anthony Clark from DoD Voluntary Education Compliance speak to us on how do we maintain compliance within the DoD Memorandum of Understanding. And then finally, the Council of Colleges and Military Educators is the parent organization that supports regional ACMEs through their ACME liaison. We have quarterly president meetings with the CCME president and their board. And then they share best practices to us as far as what they're finding works, legislative changes that we may not be aware of, anything that helps us support our mission. Lisa?
You'll probably be notified.
All right. Travis, thank you so much. I know it's always a challenge in our position because we're always out in the field in education centers. So sometimes trying to jump on and present and share what we're doing out here in the field can be challenging because we're in environments that we have students walking in and out. And just great job, Travis. Appreciate that. I know you had some interference going on there. So I'm going to talk to everyone about the National Association of Institutions for Military Education Services. That is a long title. So we are best referred to as NAIMES. So NAIMES is an advocacy group organization, and we have membership that is comprised of various types of academic institutions. We currently have 17 institutional members. And then our goal is to advocate and influence for the decisions that impact policy, legislation, and practices that safeguard the academic success for military affiliated students. Our beliefs are that sharing and advocating for institutional best practices in education, we believe that a collective voice of reason is more powerful. We recognize that the diversity within our organizations is essential for us to be able to do that. Not every institutional organization functions the same. And so we can better support our students through the diversity of our institutions within this organization. And we want to make a positive difference, and that requires mutual respect and collaboration. All right, Travis, next slide. Okay, so our initiatives. So what are we working on and how are we trying to support military affiliated learners? So policy advocacy and legislative support is probably our biggest initiative, at least currently, as we're working on a couple different things to support military affiliated students in this space. We do academic and scholarly research surrounding relevant topics within the military education landscape. We support best practices in higher education, sharing amongst institutions what works best for us. If we have issues that are coming out of the DoD that we're wanting to address, we share that there to collaborate together and come up with good solutions. We provide scholarships. We're partnered through the Veterans United organization, and that allows us to present scholarship to recipients who apply. And then institutional collaboration and networking. Next slide, Travis.
Oh, well, it's not advancing.
Uh-oh.
There we go.
There we go. So our advocacy efforts and what we're currently working on and have worked on in the past. In 2021, we authored a white paper that addressed the disparity within the monthly housing allowance for our veteran students using their GI Bill. We found that it's a common challenge for students who select the modality of online learning over in-classroom learning because they don't get the same monthly housing allowance as their in-classroom counterparts. And this can be problematic for students who have transitioned out of the service. They've now taken up civilian roles, they're getting established in their jobs, and they're taking classes on top of that. They rely on those benefits, and those are earned benefits that they're just not receiving because of the way that everything is written for them to be only given half of the amount if they're attending online. So we did write a white paper addressing that. We engaged with policymakers to put forth legislative action on this, and it's still an ongoing effort. And it probably will be for some time, but we're going to keep plugging away at it and seeing if we can make some changes for our veteran students. Last year in 2024, NAIMES authored a position paper in support of a tuition assistance increase. And so what this stemmed from is that the higher cost of education today compared to just 5 years ago is really affecting our military affiliated students. And tuition assistance, which they get for being active duty service members, that's the $4,500 a year that Travis was talking about. It's not kept pace with the Pell Grant, as Pell's been increasing. Tuition assistance just has not. Tuition assistance has not been increased since 2002. And it's really giving our service members a disservice in being able to have some flexibility and some choice in who they're choosing to attend, particularly in programs that tend to be higher cost, such as healthcare programs, if they want to go into a law degree. Some of these programs are pretty pricey, and if they're only able to choose, because of their financial standpoint, institutions that keep their tuition at $250 a credit hour, it really limits our active duty service members from being able to make the best choice for themselves in using these benefits. This is also an ongoing effort that we're working on, but we're going to keep pushing forward with it. Next slide, Travis. Our Student Spotlight Award. So NAIMES partners with the Veterans United Foundation. And because of that and their sponsorship, we've been able to give 5 $1,200 awards each year since 2021, I believe. And these awards go to military affiliated students. So we have active duty, veterans, spouse, and dependents. Our scholarship committee within our organization accepts the applications, rates the applications, and chooses and selects the recipients. And this year it was really exciting because we were able to present one of the recipients their award at the Council of College of Military Educators Symposium in February in the DC area. And he was an E6 Navy student, and he brought with him his active duty girlfriend. They're both active duty. And he got up on stage and spoke a few words. And this really just being able to do stuff like this really reminds us why we love what we do and serving in these volunteer roles. Next slide, Travis. So that's kind of it on NAIMES. That's an overview, but we would love for you to communicate and collaborate with us. So I've provided some contact information on the slide. You can find us on our website. You can follow us on LinkedIn. I highly encourage you to do so because that way you can remain up to date on what we're doing and some of the initiatives that we're working on to promote just better opportunities for our students, our military affiliated students. Okay. Next slide. So kind of wrapping it all up, we've talked about the ACMEs and we talked about NAIMES. So how is that connected to UAGC's culture of care? Sorry, I did have notes. So collaboration helps us to ensure that military affiliated students receive the advocacy, financial support, and academic resources that they need to succeed. And mission-driven initiatives such as research efforts, advocacy efforts, and scholarships that these organizations are working on helps us to exemplify a culture of care within the institute, these organizations individually, as well as in UAGC. So UAGC is partnered with both of these organizations, and within these organizations, we educate the educators on
We lost Lisa. Give her a second to see if she comes back. All right, so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and move on, and if we get Lisa back, we can kind of come back to these last couple slides. So in summary, what we want participants to take from this session are the following to support our culture of care. Military affiliated. Oh, there's Lisa. You back? Okay.
I'm back. I'm so sorry. I don't know
where
you lost me.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the exact word.
Okay, no, that's fine. So just basically our culture of care and partnering with these organizations helps us share best practices, educate each other within our institution and with other institutions on the challenges and the needs of this specific student demographic, and really focus on providing that through a culture of care internally and externally. Okay, so collaborative roles of ACME and NAIMES, and we've kind of touched on this throughout our presentation, but advocacy and policy development, professional development and training. I don't know if you caught this when I said it for the last slide, I might have caught out, but what we're kind of doing out here within these volunteer organizations is helping to educate other educators on how to best serve their military affiliated students. We get institutions in the ACMEs that are small institutions, not necessarily located near a base. And so they don't have the same resources that we would have as a larger institution who have people on the ground. And we are aware of a lot of the resources, either regionally or nationally, for these students. So it really helps us work together under a level of mutual institutional respect to share resources with other institutions that they can then pass on these efforts, best practices in serving their own military affiliated students. Okay, Travis, you want to wrap us up?
Yep. So as I said a second ago, in summary, what we want you all to take from this session are the following things to support our culture of care. Military affiliated students have unique challenges that make it very difficult to continue to remain enrolled in school. We're not suggesting that anyone treat these students with kid gloves. What we do advocate, though, is that empathy and understanding are at the forefront of your mind when a military affiliated student presents you with a challenge that arises from their military commitments. Secondly, please look at the names and the ACME organizations in your area and see what they do to bridge the gap between military learners, their institutions, and DoD policy. Third, it is an uncertain world. Our military members are being continually deployed to austere conditions all over the world, sometimes with very little notice or ability to even reach out to let people know where they're going. It's a tough life. Patience, understanding, and support go a long way to help these folks achieve their goals. And again, support the University of Arizona Global Campus's culture of care.
Thank you, Travis.
I will apologize that I jumped on the chat a second ago, forgetting that I was the one that was sharing the slide. So that's a rookie mistake. Sorry about that.
That's an effect of someone who's used to typing with one hand and juggling a chainsaw with the other, and then taking a bite of a protein bar with his foot or something like that simultaneously while looking at 5 screens. So I think we all understand that. Thank you, Lisa and Travis. That was very insightful. In my opinion, we just did a presentation, a little roundtable discussion with John Aldrich and a few other people from sort of the faculty perspective working with military students. And I think maybe next year we should either make this into a some kind of joint thing, either a bigger thing with your input and ours, or maybe a multi-step one, because y'all had some of the direct sort of specific information in the weeds that the faculty don't always have. And we were coming from veteran/faculty experience, and a lot of that is one side of things, plus outdated because we're in the military so long ago. And so I think a bigger sort of initiative would be awesome. I also want to point out, Travis, were you going to say something?
Yeah, actually, a while back, and I can't remember what even started the process. I presented to Dr. Handy and her faculty about just the little things, the acronyms that you're going to hear. And that's something that we can easily put together and move into a larger collaborative effort to help people understand their military students a little better. And sometimes it's just the language.
That's funny you mentioned that. Somebody mentioned the acronyms, and somebody might have shared that document y'all had. Oh, and Teresa, Dr. Handy's on here. She was either sharing it or got shared with it, and we were joking, and I spit out this post with like 7 acronyms in it back to back, and you couldn't understand what was being said unless you were military, and that was the joke. But I wanted to point something out before Dr. Anderson leads into a few questions for y'all, because it seems like we still have almost 30 minutes left, if I'm right here, maybe 25 minutes left. What I wanted to mention was, during this one session, while y'all are at base education centers, Travis had to work through background noise with people literally being taught things, right? Lisa at one point had a Wi-Fi situation because it's always spotty in that sense. And these are at like Dover Air Force Base and regular locations where this is like the good quality infrastructure, right? And it's funny, especially Travis's experience, because it reminds me of when I was in the military at base education centers trying to go through things, I'm sitting here trying to learn something, right, at an online course at the time. And there's 3 other students who work 12 hours behind me. All of us are in uniform. There's one lady walking around helping people. And you're trying to like listen to a video or do your video on your computer while people are, it's a lot to have to juggle. And you're all kind of confined into these limited areas with limited resources. And I thought it was kind of great because we got to see a small snapshot of what the military students are dealing with every single day. So anyway, that was my take.
It is there in this room. There are 5 computers that thankfully during this presentation, there weren't 5 students being, being counseled, but yeah, it's funny at Fort Campbell. It's nothing to see the 3 or 4 schools that are there with representatives on any given day have 8, 9, 10 students lined up waiting to talk to, one of the reps. The counselors are walking in and out. It can be a lot to try to get through to that one student you're trying to work with.
And it's a very distracting environment. And on top of that, when the students come in, they only have so much very limited time to knock out this long list of checks that they have to do to get enrolled into their education. So they have to go to a briefing to know how to use their tuition assistance benefits. They have to meet with their school rep to make sure that they've completed the application and they're signed up. And they still have to be back for formation by 1300. So they got to knock it out. It's a very high tempo environment. And yeah, just working with these students and seeing the stresses that they have and the nervousness to even sign up for school in the first place. And then in a stressful environment, and they're facing deployment, it just having the grace and the understanding of what they experience every day really helps us in our role to better support them. And we just want to share that as much as we can from the rooftops with all of our coworkers here at UAGC, that any way we can support how you support these students, we are right there ready to help. So
that makes a lot of sense. And it's really from a faculty perspective. And I'm about to turn this over to Dr. Anderson to relay questions. I see we have one in the chat as well. But from a faculty perspective, it's super interesting because it's like all the things you just described, none of that stuff translates to the faculty member. They're like, oh, you're a little late on your discussion board. It's not, hey, I worked 14 hours today. I'm still in uniform. I waited in line at the base education center to do this, that, and the other thing. And now I'm working on the discussion board. That isn't necessarily going to come through these battles they're fighting just to get to turn on the discussion board to even look at it. So that's all I have to say. Dr. Anderson, if you want to head in for the questions, I will back off.
No, thank you so much. I see a question and also a document with acronyms. Let's take the question first, and then we'll ask Teresa if she would kind of go over, Dr. Handy, if she would go over her acronyms document a little for us. So Joanne wants to know, are you finding military students mainly rely on these computers to do their classwork, or do most have personal computers, laptops of their own?
I don't think I've seen anybody do anything other than basically get signed up within the education center. I think at this point, everyone I've seen has their own technology. Lisa, what do you think?
I have talked to brand new students who have not taken college courses before, so they really don't know what they need. And I get asked the question a lot of, does the school provide me with a computer? And the answer is no. But they do have access to be able to purchase computers. But if you have a private in the military who's in their first or second year of service, they're not making much money at all. So they would have to go out and probably finance the purchase of a laptop or computer. So we do get asked the questions a lot of, can I do this from my iPad? And an iPad is a challenge that I don't recommend to students just because of the availability to write a paper on an iPad. And it's getting better as technology is growing. But sometimes I have met with students who do not have computers. So they rely on the library, the education center computers, or students don't have internet in their barracks. So they're sitting at Starbucks trying to do their homework. around their duty hours. So there are challenges, and most often the student will not necessarily come to you and say that they're having this challenge, because they're a little frightful of admitting that and saying, hey, I don't
Yeah.
have the resources. But recognizing that, you know, maybe this student is only posting at 1 a.m. or is only, you know, doing their discussion boards really, really quickly, and they seem rushed, and they come through during 11:30 to 1 o'clock their time, because that's their duty lunch. So recognizing that as a faculty member sometimes can help you start facilitating that conversation with these students of, you know, do you have the resources you need? How can I support you? Maybe a little bit of extra time as they kind of get things together to be more prepared for their next class. Because, I mean, military students sometimes will show up not prepared for this type of environment. They have to be prepared in everything else in their life, but this is new to them. It's a new space. So yeah, that's my comment on that.
One thing I would add to that, and Lisa made me think about it, is your students could be literally anywhere in the world, from Japan to Iraq to Germany to Alaska. So, you know, those things of the challenge of figure out what time is something due in my time zone is, you know, that's an additional little thing of where am I in the world? So yeah, and if someone's in South Korea, for instance, or even in Germany, you're talking about a 9 to 10 hour or more time difference. So reaching out to the instructor to say, hey, I have a question, could be a 24-hour period just to get a based on, you know, the vagaries of the, you know, the time zones.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Dr. Handy has a document that was created by Travis, and she's going to share with us how the document has helped her and her team.
Oh, excellent.
Hey, hi Travis. Hi everyone.
Hi, Dr. Handy.
Travis and I met at the Teaching and Learning Conference in November, and he said some things that really triggered something with me. And I had recently had a student to post that he had a TDY and all these other acronyms. And Dan was so funny yesterday in a session where he sent back a note with like 5,000 acronyms. And I just realized I Googled it and I figured it out. But I realized that I couldn't be the only faculty member who didn't understand what was being said to me very casually with a military student. They just shared and they assumed that I understood it, right? And I thought that was fantastic that they would assume that I had that level of understanding. And I laughed and said, I had to figure out what you were telling me, but, you know, of course, you know, you have an extension, and of course, you know, take your time. And I realized that I wanted the team. I run the, I'm over the program, Gen 101, our Developing Skills and Strategies for Success course, the very first course that our students take coming into the institution. And I felt like I wanted our faculty members, we have about 120 faculty members, to be more comfortable with these acronyms that they would see in the course, in their correspondence with a student. And so I reached out to Travis, and he came out and he did a great presentation during one of our quarterly meetups. And then he created this acronym sheet, which is one millionth of all of the acronyms that are in existence. And he said, Teresa, this is just what you may see. And so it has been really helpful to us to have that tool in our toolkit as we engage with our military students. I think it is so important. I have students who are in Guam. I've had students in Korea. I've had students all over the world. And I have found that it's really important for them to know that I'm trying to understand their experience, that I'm trying to understand the barriers they have, which is, you know, oftentimes I'm without my phone or my laptop for 12 days out of a 5-week course. You know, and I say to them, make sure you speak to your advisor so that you can cover that attendance requirement. But just know that you're good on my end. I will grade the work when you get back without penalty. And I really think that's important, to not penalize our students who are doing work during a course. And so I really stress that to people, to really extend that culture of care with grading so that they are not negatively impacted for doing something. They're doing two things, right? They're trying to progress with their career and they're trying to work. And so who am I to like take off points because something is late? So I really encourage faculty to think very carefully about rejection and points for things that they're out of their control. But thank you, Travis, for supporting our team and deepening our understanding. Yes.
Of course.
Thank you. So Dr. Handy's statement takes us to our next question. How can institutions ensure that faculty and staff receive adequate training to understand and address the unique challenges faced by military affiliated students?
The green zone training that
Yep.
UAGC offers is a great start, but like anything else, it's a once over the world. It's pretty good. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's never going to get you to the depth across all the services. Each service has its own little idiosyncrasies.
Excuse me.
But
Can I get somebody to unlock the bat?
Yeah, well, I'll get someone.
Great.
In a second.
Thank you.
but that's the place I would start would be the green zone training.
Thank you.
Yes.
Lisa, did you have something to add?
So for a training perspective, I would agree with the green zone training. From a non-training perspective, just chat with your students. You know, if they're bringing up acronyms that you're not fully aware of, or they're saying something that you're not quite understanding, there might be more behind that than what they're sharing within that message to you within their Canvas. So, you know, facilitate that conversation and ask them, and you can learn a lot from them just through those types of conversations, which will help you when you're supporting other military affiliated students in next courses. So.
And I would tell you that even I retired as lieutenant colonel, and I was an Army guy, which is of course the absolute best service there is. But there are things I learn on a daily basis from other members on the team who are Air Force or who are Marines or Navy, because everyone has their own little sub language of the big language. I guess we'll call it dialects of military speak, but different little policies, different little procedures, and again, the dialects. Even for someone who spent their entire life in a uniform, there's still things I learn every day.
Can I just add something too? Travis doesn't even realize he actually just exhibited some of the dialect we're talking about. He made the comment that the Army was the best service there is. I understood what he was saying, but other people probably took him literally. But I, as Air Force, understand that was ridiculous because everyone knows the Air Force is the best service there is. But we know that Travis is saying that as a joke inside. There's constant ribbing between the branches. Like yesterday, I said I was sort of in the military because I was in the Air Force. You know, those kind of things that other military people would get. And so he was even doing some of the dialect he just talked about because what he said was clearly ridiculous.
Just remember that you'll always be the little brother.
We did come from the Army a long time ago, just like the Space Force came from us. So we'll probably say the same thing to them. But
Well, we would like to thank all those who have served in any branch of the
Absolutely.
military. We thank you for your service and we thank you for your family's sacrifice. So I want to move to the next question. And our next question is, what are some practical strategies for fostering a sense of belonging and community among military students, especially in online hybrid learning environments?
Couple things. Our student veterans chapter is one way. Two is we're working on doing a thing called Slice and Advice. And it works in the field. It really does. But the idea is to get students to come out while we're making a visit on the installation, get them together. Just because they're at one installation hardly means they know each other. So we want to get them together as much as possible when we do our office hours. Hey, come by, just come chat. And the idea is to get these folks together. Hey, do you know such and such? link them together as mutual support, because it can feel really lonely, as you all know, doing online education. And especially if you're feeling like you have these other additional challenges you can't talk to anybody about because they may not understand.
Take, for example, a military student, lower enlisted in a business class. And he might be one of two students in that class, and his peers, who are his fellow students, are coming in and sharing their business practices and their examples from what they're doing in their civilian roles. And he doesn't necessarily feel that component coming out of his service if he's, say, Army infantry. He can't necessarily see what he can bring to the table out of his personal experience when there's actually a lot of experience there that equates. But sometimes our military students don't know how to translate that from their military environment and experience into that business perspective. So communication like that with the student inside the classroom to help them see and recognize that they do have experience. It's just labeled different, experience different. But they can still tie it to what they're learning within the course. And then also our Student Veterans of America chapter, we have one within the university, is a great way to get our military and veteran students connected as peer students for that mutual support and guidance and understanding.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any final questions that they would like to ask before we wrap up? Okay, so our final question would be, how can schools balance academic rigor with the flexibility needed to accommodate military students' unpredictable schedules and commitments?
That's a killer. That's a killer question, because no one is ever you'll never hear me advocate. I know Lisa wouldn't advocate, nor would John or anybody else in the military team advocate for giving a free pass or an easy pass. Empathy is the only thing I can think of that really talks about the balance, because you have to understand that things happen, but at the end of the day, the student has to meet the standard. And if there's anything these guys and gals understand, is meeting the standard. It may be tough. It may be that, hey, I chose poorly this term, and I've got to withdraw. But holding the standard is so key. But balancing that with the empathy of, as Dr. Handy said, can I look at this and say, yes, you can take a couple extra days because you're going to be in the field for 3 days or whatever. Lisa, what do you think?
No, I agree. I think that, having an understanding that the student might need some flexibility within their coursework and their time, but they still need to learn the learning outcomes. They still need to be able to pass the class and do the work. So I think it's a fine line of, how much can we provide the student with additional resources and additional time within the scope of that? We're ensuring that the student's still participating and still actively engaged within the class. So I'm not sure. I'm not a faculty member. If I have any suggestions from that, other than just communicate with the student, allow them time if needed, but still hold them accountable to, obviously the expectations of the course, because they still need to learn what they signed up for that class to learn, and it still needs to progress towards their degree plan. So they need to make sure that they're making good effort and progressing and getting grades, that are appropriate for the work that they're turning in. But sometimes just a little grace and empathy within what we expect of them when they're going through tough times.
Thank you, Lisa. And I think that grace is part of the culture of care, right?
Yes.
So
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you so much. So let's give a big thanks to Lisa and Travis for their time and insight as we conclude this session. Thank you to all our viewers. Thank you for your questions and your input. We hope you found the conversation interesting.